All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to TNT Championship Season 2, 2023. I am Deltheus. How's it going, everybody? It's been about a month since I made any content here. We wrapped up the Town of 21. Fantastic, kind of wonky gentleman tournament. Those are always really fun to cover and compete in. And yeah, I'm really excited for this next season of TNT Championship. I like the rules. I kind of like how it's a bit straightforward. It's always fun to bounce back and forth between some of those like more odd tournaments and then back to a traditional, try hard, sweaty, just play the game, as best as you can with no other rules. And I think this season's going to be a lot of fun. I guess the first thing to do would be to go over pretty quickly what we're doing here as far as groups and players. So if I pop this over, where's the button? There's the button. Okay, so the tournament's split up into two divisions and then kind of two stages. So for each division there will be the group stage, which is a round robin, so everybody will play everybody else once in best of 5 matches, tally up the scores, and then from there it's going to go into more of a traditional like single elimination bracket, with the top 2 players from each group and then also a couple wild cards if needed for balancing the brackets. So this is the competitive division here. We've got 4 groups, and I think these are pretty common names in the scene if you've been kind of following along over the years. Some players have returned that we haven't seen in a little while, which I'm excited for. Meek comes to mind. Meek was a very strong player back in the day. Even made it to some finals, if I recall. And as well as like Winterload, we haven't seen in a minute. Maybe Noun Verber as well. I can't recall if they competed in Season 1. But the groups all look fairly well balanced. I believe that the top player that you see in each group was actually seeded into those groups to kind of just balance things out, because they're generally considered, 4 of the top players in the game, so we didn't want to make like a group that was Mishi, UrbaneOlive, Tatanka, and Melvin Fro all together, right? And then after that, it was just random. So, looking at the groups, honestly, my group seems pretty stacked. Mishi and Sasha are always top tier. Kipo can be pretty powerful when he's trying hard and when he's playing. Also another name that kind of took a break for a little while that has come back. And myself and Scav, I think we're a little bit of the underdogs in the group, a bit of the wild cards. But hey, if we practice, we can play well and get it done. Maybe sneak into the single elimination phase. Group B's got a lot of names that I think we're pretty familiar with here. UrbaneOlive, in my opinion, Olive is always like the guy who got to competitive league or high ranking Tooth and Tail pretty quickly. Big Pimpintosh has been around forever. Great streamer, likes to play random, likes to play crazy compositions, a little bit off meta, which is very powerful. I mean, obviously the meta is the meta for a reason, right? Generally those are the best compositions, but Tooth and Tail is a fairly balanced game. There's not a lot of units that are just like complete garbage in any situation, So you can make some crazy stuff work, especially if you catch your opponent off guard. Protocam, again, he's been around forever. Generally kind of aggressive. Evil Murloc, also aggressive, also another player who got pretty good pretty fast. And then Noun Verber used to be around a lot more. I'd be curious to see how they perform this season. Group C, Tatanka, obviously one of the greatest, is the one who ended up winning Season 1 with the rematch between him and Mishi. Very close series that time around as well. Zensej, always strong player. Cool to see Winterload back. Winterload is also a pretty good caster. Not sure if they're casting this season, but generally speaking, they like to stream on Twitch as well. R22, always a solid player, as well as Fleur de Lis. Fleur de Lis is, to me, just one of the big Badger players, in my opinion. Really likes to get those Badger rushes, especially on one base. And then finally, Group D, Melvin Fro, the Snake Master. QQ, also a very entertaining streamer and normally a pretty aggressive player. Meek, again, Meek was one of the better players back in the day. Lego Man's always been solid, and Xnor in the group as well. Xnor is generally around and does pretty well in most events. I'm trying to see if, maybe if I could pull up the Hall of, like, am I crazy? I feel like Meek, several years ago, yeah, intermediate division, excuse me, about 2 years ago, Meek won that. Meek won Premier Division in about 2.5 years ago as well. Yeah, Meek did really good in a preseason cup. Yeah, so yeah, Meek did win a Premier, and also won an intermediate as well. Yeah, Winter, what's up, man? Yeah, your group's pretty stacked. Honestly, these groups are pretty balanced. It's hard for me to say what the group of death is. I think all groups kind of have like one or two big names. You know, maybe like a returning player, and then a couple of just like good players that haven't quite had any strong tournament finishes. But they, you never know. If they're in good shape this time around, they could definitely take it. And then I'm honestly super excited for Open Division as well, because a lot of these names are either I haven't seen them before, or they competed in the Town of 21 events, had a lot of fun, and then now they're back to try their hand in more of a proper competitive event here. So I guess names that I recognize, Jason Blade has been doing a lot of streaming. I believe I co-casted with Jason Blade. Maybe the finals? Man, I have such a bad memory, but I'm pretty sure I had Jason Blade on the channel once and co-casted with me for a relatively large match. Felix, if I remember correctly, Felix Deep used to play a long time ago, so a returning player. I think Foxy and Effigy were in the Town of 21. Dismiss Grace was Town of 21. Space Nut, Degrazian, Jordy, Lime, all started in Town of 21, I believe. That Scar has been around for a long time. So, what was the turnout this year? Let's see. Or this season, I should say. 20 in competitive, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 21 in open. So we have a solid 41 players in the tournament this season. And that's not including additional... Oh, whoops. Oh, man. Let's try that one. There we go. That's not including some of the people that are more behind the scenes, like Tander Draco. So, again, big shout out to Kipo and Tander for putting this together. And all the casters. One thing that I'm going to try to do this season, or I try to do pretty much every time, is... most people watch my content on YouTube, so if you're watching this, I will not be covering most of the event. I mean, there's just so many matches nowadays. But the good news is that there's so many people that are casting games and covering the content, so I highly doubt any match will go uncasted this season. So I'll put a link in the description to all the other casters, either on Twitch or on YouTube. So if you're watching this, you want to watch some more competitive Tooth and Tail, I'll try to round up all those other streamers and get those links to you. So I guess without any further ado, we could start this off here with UrbaneOlive going up against Big Pimpintosh in a best of 5. Let's do it. Okay, in the bottom, we've got UrbaneOlive. And in the right, Big Pimpintosh. Actually, I really like both these decks. I'm playing very similar variants. I guess I'm kind of giving my strategy away for anybody who's in Group A, but the deck that UrbaneOlive is using here is one that I have been as well. I think it's a very solid comp. It's the classic, like, this guy comp in the early game, with the Squirrel, Mole, Skunk, Pigeon, and then going into Badger or Falcon in the late game. Falcon is just such a good unit. It really scales better than anything else. And I generally like the design of it because it's not the best in the early game. Falcon is something you really want a big economy to dump your units into. Meanwhile, on Big Pimpintosh's side, going for the cams instead, which cams can be very powerful in the early game, has that board Falcon, to round things out later. Board's generally really good. Oh, hold that thought. Olive thinking about doing a little mole rush, but comes back home. Board can also be great for a tier 1 push, or could just be very hard to deal with because the flamethrower just does so much damage to structures that you can really push into a second base. And you know, even if you don't trade 100% effectively, if you kill the gristmill in the attack, and it's kind of a 2-base versus 2-base scenario, you're normally going to win that. And then Fox, I actually still like the Fox. It's kind of hard to use or hard to figure out when to use it, but nowadays my thought process with Fox is it's really kind of a late game unit. Just kind of sprinkle it in when you're on late 2-base or 3-base, and try to just get that value between the big team fights. So both players actually playing pretty economically here. Going for a fast 2-base expand. Let's see. Ooh, Tosh actually taking a ninja over on the side. Did Olive ever scout that? He did. So one thing that can backfire with taking a hidden ninja base this early on is, imagine if Olive like never got the lay of the land, which he has already. But sometimes you don't, because you're really concerned with scouting the opponent. And then that's when it feels bad, man, because then it's like, oh, you're just kind of looking to scout, then you happen to find it. So the chance that Olive will go double check that base is very low. The only time that he would do that is if he really is on top of counting food and starts to identify that there's some food missing. So Olive maybe thinking about some moles here, decides to take it back home. Hey, what's up, Logo Man? Winterload. Tribe stream, good to see everybody in the chat. I got a first-time chatter that is speaking Russian, I think. Too American to understand that, but welcome in. Good to have you. I'm really excited for this season. It's so much fun. You know, Tooth and Tail is kind of a small game, and it's an old game at this point. You know, I've been streaming this game for 6 years now. It sounds crazy to say. But it's always really cool when, like, we do a new event like this and a bunch of new names come in. So I'm really excited for Open Division, to be honest, more so than competitive. I mean, competitive obviously is always hype, but Open is really cool because it's always fun to see how new players will try to break the game down. So UrbaneOlive with the Badger here. Did Tosh ever scout it? Tosh hasn't scouted it, and this is the problem at the moment. Because if Tosh does scout it, he can easily get into a Fox or a Falcon. He does go for the Fox, but I really think you need that Falcon support more so than the Fox against the Badger. Because, yeah, obviously if the Fox can get those nice hits on the Badger, they can DPS it down pretty quickly, but you can't have your army get just ran over. And Olive actually might scout this ninja base here. He does. Good due diligence from Olive. I mean, to be fair, this is a lot of money that Tosh had invested into that. So Olive is probably looking around Tosh's base and just saying, man, you're missing like hundreds of food. What is going on? And then now the double tier 3 comes in from Tosh, probably on the back of scouting the Badger. No, he still hasn't scouted the Badger, so Tosh is playing incredibly greedy. Full saturated third base, double tier 3 on the way. Now Olive is just going to go delete this third. The question is, has it existed long enough to kind of pay for itself? Which I think it probably has. I mean, what's the rate on pigs? It's 1 food per second, right? So as long as the pig's been there for over a minute, then it's good to go. So Olive will get this base down. Actually, just coming in with the Falcons. Oh no, he needs to target it. Oh, the Falcon might die. One Falcon does go down. But Tosh is going to use this opportunity to move in, knock out these Mole Warrens. And this is what I'm worried about. Like, yeah, Tosh has the Fox, but as much as a Fox player as I am, okay, the board's out here. This is a lot more important. And, yeah, this is the problem. Olive's already kind of won the war by eliminating that second base. Tosh wasn't quite ready because the board wasn't out, but the board was an absolutely huge explosion there, getting the Badger, wiping out most of the army, and now Tosh is in a great position to counter-push and win this game. But Tosh has to deal critical damage back. Olive has already eliminated both of Tosh's expansions. The question is, can Olive muster up enough forces to deal with this? That board from Tosh was so effective. I mean, that army trade was absolutely wild. Look at that graph there. And I don't think Olive is going to be able to hold the door. And there it is. I believe Tosh will be taking game number 1. Honestly, eco doesn't matter when you win the fight. Dude, true. In some of my practice games, I've been noticing that a lot lately. Like, I don't even mind if my opponent gets a little bit ahead of me on economy. Like, if I have the better army, you know, it takes a while for economy to pay off, right? So you do need to be careful about trying to eco up too fast, but ultimately, Tosh just won that fight way too hard. That boar bomb was absolutely insane. Alright, game number 2 here. Okay, in the bottom left, we have UrbaneOlive getting the owl into the mix, and over on the right-hand side, changing up the deck pretty considerably, we have big Pimpintosh. Tosh with the triple tier 3 here. It's very Tosh style, and I love the units that Tosh decided to go with for the early game. I mean, Squirrel, Pigeon, Skunk, that's just great. You know, you get out like double Skunk, maybe like 15 Squirrels, 3 Pigeons just to kind of heal the Skunks up a little bit. That's a great early to mid-game composition. But he's also very greedy, and the thing is about really good players like Olive, I think what makes you a good Tooth and Tail player overall is identifying attack windows, right? Like against a lesser player, maybe Tosh can throw down a bunch of tier 3 and they don't know exactly like, oh, I can go in and break them, but you know, a very strong player like Olive is going to be scouting constantly, and the second that Tosh just goes a little bit too greedy, can easily pull the trigger and push in. With a pretty strong early game comp. No moles though from Olive, which is a little bit surprising. Looks like he sacrificed some moles to get into the owl. So, we'll see. I mean, Defender's Advantage can be a little bit good. Okay, yeah, this is just like such greed from Tosh here. Selling that warrant. To be fair, I think that you're okay doing that. Since he saw the second base coming out from Olive, yeah, now he's going to be very patting himself on the back with that decision. After seeing those pigs go down to that second base, very, very safe to get that tier 2. But if you try to do something like that, without confirming that your opponent is being a little greedy, they can just run you over at tier 1. I mean, it looked like the skunk's not even out yet, you know? So pretty similar opening builds. Pretty balanced map. Pretty small map too. There's a very short rush distance. There's a good amount of road. Maybe if you're a little bit newer, you might not realize that this road here actually speeds up your units. So if you're ever trying to like run away from a battle or something, try to get on that road. Yeah, both players just going for some second base farms and some skunks here. Nobody with any sounds of aggression. Music sound a little weird. Let me know in the chat. Yeah, it sounds like it might just be winter load there. I haven't messed with levels. I actually started streaming. I stream on another channel, TnTTV, every now and then when I play like Final Fantasy or something. And I started streaming. I forgot I didn't change the stream key. So I was like live on my other channel for like 30 seconds. I was like, whoops. Alright, Tosh. Gonna advance in. I don't think he's gonna get anything done. Olive's got his own skunks. He's got plenty of squirrels. Sells off some of those front farms. Don't want them to go down. Tosh is gonna commit to this though. Yeah, really good defense by Olive. Nobody loses any skunk. Oh no! Oh, that skunk goes down by getting back into the skunk ass there of the opponent. So with that skunk going down, it became a little bit better there for Tosh, and I do like the wolf right off the back of that aggression. Olive should see the scout though. Let's see how deep he tries to get in there. Like, he knows about that little... Oh, he actually never did scout this little spot up here where things can be hidden. That's actually pretty huge. Tosh is going to move out again. Try to see if he can get anything done. Actually manages to get a couple building pigs. The game's going very well for Tosh. And I love masking the fact that you're going for a tier 3 with a little bit of aggression, but not overcommitting. And going for a second tier 3 here. Tosh is such a greed lord. And now Olive's gonna scout it, and he sees double tier 3. Olive is going for his own Badger, though. Oh, Wolf Buff Badger is gonna be pretty cool. Olive decides to get his own second tier 3 here in the form of the Owl, but I think Tosh is putting together a better composition. If we do manage to get to the ultra late game, Olive does have Falcons, which I think are just like the best unit in the game as far as scalability. But I think Tosh has a much better like late mid game, early late game kind of comp. You know, Wolf Buff Badger, especially with Tosh, who knows how to play Badger quite well, is going to be pretty sweet to watch. And I'm a little bit worried for Olive because I think that the comps that both players are putting together right here, right now, Tosh is going to have the advantage. Especially because Tosh can hit before the Owl comes out. And a single Owl is not the scariest thing in the world, especially when Tosh has stuns. Olive is trying to start transitioning into those Falcons. But here we go. Is Tosh going to move out right now? He probably wants to get a little bit of buffing on his production and on his pigs. But he needs to try to, like, micro the Wolf and Badger to make sure the Badger gets the buff. Like, bring them both out of the pack a little bit. Then again, I mean, buffing a bunch of squirrels is not a bad thing either. Okay, the Badger does have the buff. Lots of skunk cats going down on either side. Badger is getting pretty low. Owl gets deleted. Enemy Badger gets deleted, and that's going to be another win from Tosh there. Good micro. And Tosh is currently up 2-0 in this series. Let's hop into match number 3. Alright, on the left-hand side, UrbaneOlive with some ferrets and mines, changing things up. Over on the right-hand side, Tosh also teching in those ferrets. Ferrets are a very interesting unit in this game. They have very, like, I want to say high floor and high ceiling kind of unit. I mean, in some situations, you really would just rather have, like, a chameleon or something, but in other situations, they're like a budget fox and can sit there and poke and prod the enemy down. Arguably even better than a fox, since it can hit structures. And ferrets can really make the difference, too, in a game that starts to stalemate out, where neither side really wants to commit to a big attack. So you can sit there and just kind of poke your enemy and make them come meet you in the field. Ooh, mole coming in, Tosh! Oh! Oh no! Oh my gosh, Tosh messed up the sell in the second one. Maybe he was thinking it would finish in time? Tosh was able to sell that first farm, but UrbaneOlive getting 45 food off the late sell on the second farm. It's a little bit of early game advantage here for Olive. Nicely done. Olive is one of the players who continues to be a mole rusher. And I don't think this one gets up in time. He might be just looking for an overreaction from Tosh. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I think Olive was really just hoping Tosh would kind of panic and sell those farms. And get like a little bit of economic tempo there, just by making him rebuild. So ferrets coming out from both sides. And let's see. Olive does have the high ground. Map gen is a lot better for Olive, I feel like. Especially if Olive can kind of make this the spot that he fights. Imagine if Tosh tries to expand here. You know, Olive can really abuse this high ground with the ferrets. Make Tosh's units be slowed down in the water. couple cheeky mines go down, but it looks like Tosh is aware of them and is able to reveal and get the kills there. So that will kind of even up the damage that he took in the early game from the moles. Tosh moving forward. Falcons are a nice touch here to get high ground vision. Not super relevant on this map gen. Also, the Falcon can help like push the opponent's ferrets away. Tosh getting a nice hit on the opponent's ferrets, but Olive with enough tier 1 starting to bully these units back. Really awkward map here. Very, very small, small little pathway here. You know, keep in mind units have to find a tile to stand on before they can really attack. Couple trades here. Not sure who's really got the advantage. Look kind of back and forth to me. I like this from Olive. I think this is the correct approach. Just blood with tier 1. That's kind of the weakness of ferrets and falcons, is tier 1. I think that kill would be big. 1 more HP. Olive wants it so bad, but can't get it. He's gonna crash into his opponent though, who has quite a few squirrels already in position. And that's why Tosh won that engagement. It's because his units were already, they had their feet planted. You know, they're ready to go. They're all firing at once while Olive's were trickling in. Even though Olive had more tier 1 there, it's really more about DPS. Olive's got to be careful not to lose his commander. The Falcons are doing good work, actually. Tosh with some great micro on his tier 2 units here. And this is going to get a little bit more dicey shortly here. Neither player really able to get a second base. Tosh did build that mill there, but it was more so the tank. Tosh did a great job keeping this Falcon alive. I don't think the moles are 100% necessary here, especially because Olive is dealing with these Falcons. I mean, they're always nice to have a few to tank, but they can get pretty kited by the ferrets, and then they also can't interact with the Falcons there. So 5-minute mark came and went. The economies are starting to dwindle. So kills on tier 2 are going to be more and more important here. It's going to be very difficult to invest 60 food moving forward, rebuilding those units. But does Tosh just have enough? Tosh has been able to get really good value out of these ferrets. He's been able to micro quite effectively and keep his tier 2 alive. And that is going to be it. Tosh taking the series 3-0.